We move now to the development of sexual orientation, something that over the years has been fairly controversial. There have been many changes that have occurred over the last 20 years, and certainly gay and lesbian lifestyles have become more acceptable, certainly within younger age groups and specific cultures. There's still a bit of a negative stereotype associated with some highly conservative or religious groups, considering that the behavior is amoral. Um, but generally, the acceptance has gained favor. Of course, we're not here to debate that. We're here to, as scientists to figure out how someone becomes oriented sexually in the way they are. And it used to be years ago when this was much more controversial. Students would ask me a question like, well, when did they decide to be gay? And I would flip that on its head and go, when did you decide to be straight? When did you choose? Did you choose to be straight? Was there an incident in your life that made you straight? A role model or something like that? And of course, it's a ridiculous question if you look at it that way. You just sort of are what you are most of the times. So let's talk about factors that might influence your choice of sexual orientation or your end result of sexual orientation. First, let's take the social and environmental. Some of the evidence suggests, I should say, some of the opinion suggests that social environmental factors can make someone gay. That's not necessarily the case. Matter of fact, there's plenty of evidence that suggests that adolescents who engage in gay sex, maybe in all male schools or dormitories, prisoners who engage in gay sex, once they're out of those situations, they're heterosexual males as much as they're not. Okay, so activity, uh, gay lesbian activity, does not necessarily promote the final orientation of gay or lesbian. Now, there is some evidence that child sexual contact does increase the risk for some people to be gay, lesbian, or bisexual. But of course, there are plenty of gay and lesbians and bisexual individuals who have had no childhood sexual contact and sure enough, um, still have the orientation that they have. There's also correlative evidence that suggests that having an older biological brother increases your risk for being gay. This is interesting, but it's tough to find out what the cause is there. In terms of genetics, there is similarity in twins. Monozygotic twins have a much greater chance of if one twin is gay, the other being gay, even if they've been raised apart, than dizygotic twins. Uh, Homosexuality runs in the families, but of course, so does heterosexuality. So the genetics is there, but it's moderately genetic. Okay, nobody has identified the gene yet, but undoubtedly someday someone will. Let's look at brain and body differences. So Simon LeVay years ago identified a specific nucleus in the hypothalamus called the interstitial nucleus. And this is data right here. And he showed, and this study has been replicated, that the nucleus of heterosexual women and gay men were similar size than of heterosexual men, showing what's called a sexually dimorphic nucleus. So sexually dimorphic, this was a phrase coined by Kinsey. So the two sexes die to morph shape. Each sex has a different shape of the nucleus. In this case, we're talking about sexual orientation changes the shape. So there is some evidence to suggest there may be brain differences. There's also evidence to suggest that an area in the brain called the anterior commissure that connects two parts of the brain may be different in gay individuals and straight individuals. There's some evidence that the ridges of fingerprints can show differences between gay and lesbians compared to heterosexual individuals. There's evidence of the D2-D4 ratio. This is it right here. Digit 2 compared to digit 4, the ratio. This is only an effect in heterosexual and lesbian women. If the ratio is high, close to 1, which means these two fingers are very close in the same size to one another, there's a much higher incidence of that person being lesbian than of the ratio being lower, as you might see in this photo right here. And males have this lower ratio, like this. There's also something called autoacoustic emissions. Women are better at picking up these emissions than men are generally. That's what this figure shows right here. So you have heterosexual males and homosexual males. Again, there's no effect on gay males or heterosexual males, But here's heterosexual women, generally better at this than males simply. But gay women, lesbians, and bisexual women, somewhere between the two, somewhere between men and women. So that is a sort of sexual orientation difference as well. Well, I got to tell you, what do all these have in common? Hormones, prenatal hormones. So the argument for all of these is that prenatal hormones influencing these, and that prenatal androgens, these are these are the class of drugs that testosterone falls in, and anabolic steroids for these masculine uh, hormones at early stages in development can possibly alter these brain and body differences and may have something to do with sexual orientation. That's where we are today.